He slammed the plate so hard that grains of rice scattered across the tiled floor. "Can't you even cook right, Maya? No salt, you call this food?" His voice roared through the small apartment, shaking the cheap glass frames on the wall. Maya stood still, spoon trembling in her hand. She'd spent her last few dollars buying that rice, her last hour hoping he'd notice her effort, but all he saw was the missing salt. Before she could speak, his hand came down hard across her face. The world tilted, the plate shattered, and somewhere deep inside her, something else broke too. She didn't scream, she didn't fight back. She just whispered through her swollen lip, "One day, Henry, you'll taste what you just served me." He laughed, brushing past her without a glance, never realizing that in that moment, he'd awakened the quiet storm that would change his life forever. He beat her just because the rice had no salt, but he didn't see her next move coming. Hi family, welcome back. Before we begin, please click subscribe. Every single click helps us tell stories of courage and truth. And in the comments, tell us where you're watching from. Because when we share these stories together, we remind each other that even in pain, we can rise. The fork slammed against the plate so hard that rice scattered across the tiled floor. "Can't you even cook right, Maya? No salt, you call this food?" Henry roared, his voice echoing through the cramped apartment. The sound hit harder than the slap that followed. His hand connected with her cheek in one swift motion, sharp and loud. Maya's head jerked to the side. The spoon fell from her trembling hand. She didn't cry out, only pressed her palm against the red mark spreading across her face. The small dining table shook as Henry shoved his chair back. "You sit at home all day, wasting my money, and can't even make a simple meal right." Maya's breathing quickened, but she stayed still. She had worked all afternoon, standing over a pot of boiling rice, while Caleb, her 7-year-old son, drew pictures beside her feet. She had stretched the last packet of rice, using half the oil left in the bottle. The salt had run out 2 days ago, and her promise to buy more tomorrow had turned into this moment. "Henry," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Please, I'll make something else." "Shut up," he snapped, grabbing the edge of the table. "You're lucky I even came home tonight." Caleb's toy car rolled from the couch and clattered near Henry's feet. The boy froze. Henry's glare cut toward him like a blade. "Pick that up and go to your room." Maya's eyes darted to her son. "Caleb, go," she said softly, her lip quivered. When he disappeared down the hallway, she finally exhaled. Henry wiped his mouth with the back of his hand and scoffed. "You're pathetic. Maybe Vanessa was right about you." The name stung. Vanessa, the woman he worked with. The one whose texts lit up his phone late at night. Maya had pretended not to notice for months. As he stormed out, slamming the door, silence filled the apartment except for the soft hum of the refrigerator and Maya's shallow breathing. Her reflection in the dark window looked like a stranger. One swollen cheek, trembling hands, and eyes that had forgotten their light. She knelt, picking up the broken plate piece by piece. A drop of blood from her palm fell into the scattered rice. Her voice was barely a whisper, but steady. "One day, Henry, you'll taste what you just served me." Outside, the hallway light flickered, a quiet foreshadowing that something in her had just shifted forever. 3 years earlier, the same kitchen had looked completely different, bright, warm, full of laughter. A younger Henry sat on the counter, grinning as Maya stirred a pot of stew. She had just graduated from nursing school, her white gown still neatly folded on the chair. "I told you," Henry said proudly, kissing her forehead. "We'll make it big together. You'll get your hospital job, I'll get promoted, and we'll move out of this box." Maya smiled shyly. "As long as we're together, I don't care how small it is." Back then, his touch had been gentle. His laugh filled the room. She believed every word he said, but promises fade faster than steam. Cut to months later, Maya sitting alone at the kitchen table, surrounded by unpaid bills. Henry's new job at Grant Logistics wasn't going as planned. Overtime pay was late, and his mother called almost daily, whispering poison through the phone. "She's holding you back, Henry. A nurse? Please, find someone who can lift you, not weigh you down." He didn't defend Maya anymore. Slowly, his warmth turned cold, his words sharper. When Maya found out she was pregnant, he didn't smile, he sighed. "We can barely feed ourselves," he muttered. Maya gave up her job search to care for Caleb, promising to return once things got better. But better never came. One afternoon, she discovered an unopened letter in her late aunt's handwriting, a lawyer's seal at the bottom. The envelope trembled in her hands. Her aunt, a retired doctor, had been like a mother to her. Maya couldn't bring herself to open it. She hid it inside a glass jar behind the flour tin, telling herself she'd read it when the time was right. That night, Henry came home drunk, laughing about office drinks with Vanessa. When Maya asked who Vanessa was, he waved her off. Just someone who appreciates conversation unlike you. The glow in his eyes from years ago had been replaced by something darker: resentment, maybe regret. Still, Maya stayed. Not out of weakness, but because of Caleb. Because she remembered the man who once held her and promised her forever. As she lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, she whispered to herself, "One day I'll open that letter." Outside, thunder rolled in the distance, not of rain, but of a storm waiting in her heart. The clinic smelled faintly of disinfectant and mint lotion. Maya sat on the edge of the bed, her sleeve tugged halfway down, revealing a dark purple bruise blooming along her wrist. She tried to smile when Nurse Tasha entered, her supervisor, mentor, and one of the few people who still called her sweetheart. "What happened this time?" Tasha asked gently, her eyes scanning Maya's face. "Oh, it's nothing," Maya replied too quickly. "I burned myself cooking." Tasha tilted her head, unimpressed. "A burn doesn't look like fingers wrapped around your arm." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Is it Henry again?" Maya's lips trembled, but she said nothing. She had already learned that silence was safer. She had once told a neighbor after the first slap word got back to Henry, and the bruises doubled. Silence had become her armor. Tasha sighed, pulled a small notepad from her pocket, and began to write something down. "You don't have to talk," she said, "but I'm documenting this, just in case you ever need help." Maya blinked. "Help?" "Evidence," Tasha clarified. "For when you're ready to stop hiding the truth." The words hit Maya harder than any slap could. She looked down at her trembling hands. Her reflection in the clinic's metal tray showed eyes she barely recognized, tired, dull, aged beyond her years. "I'm not strong like that," she whispered. Tasha placed a hand on her shoulder. "Strength doesn't start with fighting back. It starts with admitting you deserve better." For a moment, Maya felt warmth, safety she hadn't felt in years. But it flickered out the moment her phone buzzed on the counter. "Henry, you better be home before 6. And cook something edible this time." Maya's stomach twisted. She stuffed the phone into her bag and forced a shaky smile. "I have to go." Tasha watched her. "Gather her things." "Maya," she called softly, "if he touches you again, I'll call someone you won't expect. Someone who can really help." Maya paused at the door, heart pounding. "What do you mean?" Tasha just gave a knowing smile. "Let's pray you never have to find out." As Maya stepped into the fading afternoon light, a chill ran down her spine. For the first time, she wondered if the help Tasha mentioned had something to do with that unopened letter still hidden behind the flour tin. The bar lights flickered gold against polished glasses as laughter filled the air. Henry leaned back in his chair, a tumbler of whiskey in hand, while the woman across from him, Vanessa Blake, his boss's assistant, twirled her straw between crimson-painted fingers. She was the kind of woman who made confidence look easy. Sharp suit, red lipstick, diamond watch. "Your wife doesn't appreciate you," Vanessa purred. "A man who works as hard as you deserves more than rice without salt," Henry smirked. "You have no idea." But he liked that she said it. He liked the way she looked at him like he was a man of power. Not the man who came home to unpaid bills and complaints. She made him feel seen again, respected, even desired. And that was dangerous. Meanwhile, back home, Maya reheated leftover soup on the stove. The clock read 10:47 p.m. She had called Henry twice. No answer. Caleb had fallen asleep at the table, crayon still clutched in his hand. She carried him gently to bed, whispering, "Daddy will be home soon." When the door finally opened, Henry stumbled in, smelling of perfume and whiskey. Maya looked up from the couch, hopeful. "You didn't answer my calls." "I was worried," he scoffed. "I'm not a child. Stop treating me like one." Her eyes caught the red smudge on his collar. Lipstick. Her chest tightened. "Whose is that?" He paused, then sneered. "Someone who doesn't nag." Maya's voice trembled. "Henry, please, what? Maybe if you acted like a real wife?" I wouldn't have to find someone else. He shoved past her, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and disappeared into the bedroom, slamming the door. Maya stood frozen, the sound echoing through the empty apartment. Later that night, she sat by the window, staring at the moonlight, dancing across the sink full of dishes. Her fingers traced the red mark still faint on her cheek from the last slap. She thought about the letter hidden in the kitchen jar, the one from her late aunt she still hadn't opened. Her eyes glistened as she whispered to herself, "Maybe she left me something more than memories." A cold wind slipped through the cracked window, carrying the faint smell of rain. Somewhere deep inside her, a small, steady flame began to rise, a warning that the next storm wouldn't just break her, it would change everything. The morning started with silence, the kind that comes before destruction. Maya stood by the stove, stirring rice, her wrist wrapped in a cheap bandage. It still throbbed from when Henry grabbed her the night before, twisting it until she dropped the bowl. Caleb sat at the table, drawing a sun with a blue crayon, humming softly to fill the emptiness. When Henry's footsteps echoed down the hallway, Maya's pulse quickened. He had stayed out all night again. The smell of his cologne mixed with alcohol reached her before his voice did. "What's that?" he snapped, eyeing the pot. "Rice," she said quietly. "I added some seasoning since there's no salt left." His jaw tightened. "You had one job, Maya. One. I give you money." She turned, her voice barely above a whisper. "You haven't given me anything in 3 weeks, Henry." The air froze. Caleb stopped humming. Henry's hand gripped the edge of the table. "Are you calling me a liar?" "No," she said quickly, eyes down. "I'm just saying." The sound came fast, another slap, hard enough to send her reeling against the counter. The pot tipped, boiling rice spilling across the floor. Caleb screamed, rushing toward her, but Henry's glare stopped him cold. "Go to your room," Henry thundered. "Daddy, please," Caleb cried. "Stop hurting Mommy." Henry turned, eyes bloodshot, and roared. "Go!" The little boy ran, sobbing. The apartment door slammed behind him as Maya crumpled to her knees, clutching her face. The rice scattered like white tears across the tiles. Henry paced, panting. "You make me do this, Maya. You push me until I can't control it." She didn't answer. She couldn't. Her mind drifted to the jar in the cabinet, the one hiding her aunt's letter. A part of her whispered that maybe inside that envelope was her way out. When he finally stormed out, slamming the door so hard the light flickered, she stayed frozen for several minutes. Then, trembling, she crawled to the corner where Caleb's drawing lay on the floor. A sun, bright yellow, smiling. Tears blurred her vision. She whispered to herself, "This ends tonight." She grabbed her phone and dialed the only person she trusted. Her voice was hoarse but steady. "Tasha, please, I need help." Outside, thunder rolled across the sky as if the world itself had heard her decision. Maya woke to the soft hum of hospital monitors and the faint smell of antiseptic. Her eyelids fluttered open, revealing a sterile white ceiling. For a moment she panicked, unsure where she was or how she got there. Then the memory hit. Henry's slap, Caleb's scream, the sound of the door slamming. A gentle hand touched hers. "Hey," a familiar voice said softly. "You're safe now." It was Tasha. Her eyes, always firm and warm, now brimmed with worry. She sat beside the bed, still in her scrubs, her short curls pinned back beneath her cap. "You collapsed before I got there," she said. The neighbor called when she heard Caleb crying. "He's fine, he's staying with my sister for now." Maya's throat tightened. "He saw everything," she whispered. Tasha nodded. "But he's safe, and now it's time to make sure you are too." The curtains shifted. A man in a gray suit entered mid-50s, clean-cut, carrying a leather folder. His voice was calm but authoritative. "Mrs. Reed, my name is Mr. Grant. I'm your late aunt's attorney." Maya blinked. "My aunt? I never opened her letter." He gave a faint smile. "I know. That's why I came. Your aunt left you something, a trust, but not just money." He opened the folder and slid a document toward her. "She left you Serenity Haven, a rehabilitation center she founded years ago. You're its rightful owner." Maya stared, speechless. "A center? For what?" "For women. Survivors." She wanted it in the hands of someone who understood pain and could turn it into healing. Tears welled up. She remembered her aunt's gentle hands, her laughter, her words, "When life hurts you, don't just survive. Build something from it." Tasha squeezed her hand. "See? The letter you were too scared to open was your way out all along." Maya pressed a trembling hand to her chest. "But Henry, he'll never let me go." Mr. Grant's gaze sharpened. "He won't have a choice. We'll relocate you quietly, change your records. You'll start over under your aunt's foundation." Maya turned her face toward the window, sunlight spilling across her bruised cheek. For the first time, she didn't feel powerless. She felt awake. Her voice was steady when she whispered, "Then let's begin." Outside, an ambulance siren wailed faintly, a warning that her old life was ending, and something far stronger was about to rise in its place. 3 weeks later, Henry sat at a bar with a smug grin, swirling ice in his glass. The bartender leaned over. "Heard your wife left town," he said casually. Henry chuckled. "Yeah, couldn't handle a real man." "Good riddance." He lifted his drink. "Freedom tastes better than any home-cooked meal." But behind his arrogance hid a strange restlessness. No one had seen Maya since that night. No hospital bills. No police visits. No trace. It was as if she had vanished from the earth. What Henry didn't know was that 2 towns away, Maya stood on the balcony of Serenity Haven, the rehabilitation center her aunt had left her. The building stretched across a peaceful hillside, pale stone walls, blooming gardens, soft sunlight on wide glass windows. It was a place designed for recovery, not fear. Her reflection in the window startled her. Her cheek had healed. Her hair was trimmed short, her eyes no longer hollow. Tasha had moved in temporarily to help her settle, managing clinic records and bringing Caleb every weekend. "This place suits you," Tasha said one afternoon, smiling as she handed her tea. "You look like someone who finally belongs." Maya smiled faintly. "For the first time, I think I do." In the evenings, she spent hours in her aunt's old office, wooden shelves filled with journals and letters. One night, as she organized files, she found a sealed envelope marked Grant Logistics Private. Her breath caught. The same name as Henry's company. She unfolded the documents carefully. They were partnership records showing that Serenity Haven had received its original funding from Grant Logistics Foundation. But one signature stood out: Vanessa Blake's. The same woman Henry had been sneaking around with. A slow, bitter realization formed. Vanessa and Henry weren't just having an affair, they were trying to control her inheritance. Her aunt's trust was tied to the company Henry worked for. Maya leaned back in her chair, heart pounding. "So that's why he stayed," she murmured. "He wasn't just angry. He was planning something." The wind rustled the papers on her desk as if whispering confirmation. She turned off the lamp, looking out at the moonlit garden below. "If they think I'm gone," she whispered, "then that's exactly what I'll let them believe." Somewhere in the distance, the faint hum of city traffic carried a promise. Henry's world was about to collapse, and he wouldn't see it coming. The next morning, the sun poured through the clinic's tall windows, casting golden stripes across Maya's desk. She sat reading the Grant Logistics file again, tracing Vanessa's signature with her fingertip. Each page told a story: company shares, donation routes, and suspicious transfers between Vanessa and Henry's department. It was all there, but she needed proof that tied them together publicly. Tasha walked in carrying coffee and a folder. "I've been thinking," she said, settling into the chair opposite Maya. "Henry still believes you disappeared. What if we use that?" Maya looked up. "How?" Tasha grinned. "People like him can't resist bragging. I'll pay him a friendly visit. Pretend I'm checking in. Say I feel sorry for him. Maybe even mention that I miss you too. If he takes the bait, he'll talk." Maya hesitated. "That's risky." "So was marrying him," Tasha said dryly. "Let me handle this." Later that week, Tasha walked into the downtown bar where Henry often drank after work. She wore casual clothes, a sympathetic smile, and the confidence of a woman who knew exactly what she was doing. "Henry," she greeted warmly. "I heard about Maya leaving. I'm sorry." He gave a bitter laugh. "Sorry? Don't be. She was dead weight. Couldn't even cook without burning something." Tasha leaned closer. "You look like you're doing well, though. Promotion soon?" Henry smirked. "You could say that. Vanessa and I have plans. Once Mr. Grant retires, we'll be running things at Grant Logistics. She's got connections. And when we take over..." Money won't be a problem ever again. Tasha nodded, pretending admiration. Sounds impressive, he chuckled, lowering his voice. Don't tell anyone, but we've already started moving some of the foundation's cash into safer accounts. By the time anyone notices, I'll be too important to touch. Tasha's heart pounded, but she kept her face calm. Your secret's safe with me. As soon as she left the bar, she opened her phone, hit record, and saved the entire conversation. That night, she played it for Maya, who sat silently, eyes fixed on the glowing screen. Maya's voice was calm, but her hands trembled slightly. He's stealing from the foundation my aunt built. Tasha nodded. And now we can prove it. Maya looked toward the window, her reflection sharp in the glass. Then it's time to return home one last time. Outside, the wind stirred the trees, whispering the beginning of her quiet revenge. The city shimmered in the glow of evening lights as invitations to Grant Logistics' 25th anniversary gala went out to every major name in the business world. Henry stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his tie with a smug grin. Black tie, red carpet, champagne, he muttered. Finally, my night. Vanessa, seated on the bed in a sequin gold dress, crossed her legs and smiled. Our night, darling. Mr. Grant's retiring, and after tonight, we'll be running the show. Henry kissed her cheek. We earned it. The old man trusts me more than anyone. But behind his self-satisfied grin lay a hidden arrogance he didn't know someone else had also received an invitation. Across town, Maya held the same envelope in her trembling hands. The gold lettering glimmered under the soft light of her office at Serenity Haven. Mr. Grant himself had sent it with a handwritten note. Time to meet your new team. Tasha stood nearby, watching her. You don't have to go, she said carefully. We already have the recording. We can take it straight to the board. Maya's gaze hardened. No. They humiliated me in public. It's only fitting that truth finds them the same way. She opened her wardrobe. Inside hung the deep blue gown her aunt had left her, wrapped in plastic. She ran her fingers along the silk fabric, her reflection steady and calm. This time, she whispered, I walk in as who I am, not who he tried to make me. Tasha smiled faintly. Then I guess I'll book a table near the stage. The night of the gala arrived with blinding lights, camera flashes, and laughter echoing through the grand ballroom. Henry stepped onto the red carpet, arm in arm with Vanessa, reporters calling their names. Mr. Reed, rumor has it you're next in line for CEO. Henry grinned wide. Rumors travel fast, huh? Inside, the chandelier shimmered like ice. Glasses clinked, music swelled, and at the center of it all stood Mr. Grant, older now, kind eyes scanning the crowd. His assistant leaned close and whispered, Ma'am, she's here. Henry turned, just as the doors opened. Maya entered poised, radiant, the deep blue gown glinting under the lights. Gasps rippled through the room. Henry's smile vanished, his face paling as his past walked gracefully toward him. And in her calm, steady eyes, he saw something terrifying knowledge. He had no idea the night he called his would end with his undoing. The ballroom buzzed with conversation until Mr. Grant tapped the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, his voice rich and steady, thank you for joining us tonight to celebrate 25 years of integrity, innovation, and trust. Henry straightened his jacket, squeezing Vanessa's hand. Here it comes, he whispered. Our moment, Mr. Grant continued. Before I announce my successor, I must introduce someone very special, a woman whose compassion, resilience, and leadership embody what this company stands for. Please welcome our new majority shareholder, Mrs. Maya Carter-Reed. The applause began, hesitantly, then fell into stunned silence. Heads turned, cameras flashed. Henry's smile froze. What did he just say? Vanessa blinked, her glass halfway to her lips. That can't be right. All eyes followed Maya as she walked onto the stage in her blue gown, the very picture of calm power. Her movements were slow, deliberate, each step a declaration. She took the microphone from Mr. Grant, her soft voice cutting cleanly through the murmurs. Good evening, she said. Most of you knew my late aunt, Dr. Evelyn Carter, the founder of Serenity Haven and an early investor in Grant Logistics. Before she passed, she transferred her shares to me. Until recently, I didn't realize how much she had entrusted me with. Her eyes met Henry's across the room. Some people believe silence means weakness, she continued. But silence can be strategy. Sometimes you must let the world think you're gone before you return with truth. Gasps rippled through the guests. Henry's face turned pale. He stood abruptly. "This is nonsense! You're lying!" Maya tilted her head slightly. "Am I?" Mr. Grant stepped forward, placing a document on the podium. "I can confirm Mrs. Reed's ownership. She holds 61% of company shares. Effective tonight, she is the controlling shareholder and board chair." The crowd erupted into murmurs and camera flashes. Vanessa reached for Henry's arm. "Henry, what's happening?" But he was frozen, sweat beading on his forehead. "This can't be real," he whispered. Maya's gaze didn't waver. "It's very real, Henry. You once told me I wasn't good enough to stand beside you. Tonight, I'm standing above you, not for revenge, but for justice." A beat of silence hung in the air before she added softly, "And justice, Henry, always demands evidence." She turned toward the giant screen behind her. "Shall we show them?" The projector flickered to life. The ballroom lights dimmed. Every guest turned toward the massive screen behind Maya. For a second, there was only static. Then a recording began to play. Henry's voice filled the room, clear and arrogant. "Vanessa and I will take over once Mr. Grant retires. The fool doesn't even know we've already started moving the foundation's funds." Gasps echoed through the hall. Maya stood perfectly still, her expression calm, eyes fixed on Henry. He went pale, gripping the edge of the table. "That's a lie!" he shouted, his voice cracking. "She doctored that!" Maya's tone was steady. "That recording was made by Tasha Lewis, a registered nurse and verified witness. She simply gave you what you wanted most, a chance to brag." On the screen, another clip played. Vanessa's laughter followed Henry's voice. "Once the money's out, we'll be untouchable." The crowd erupted in whispers. Reporters lifted their cameras, capturing every stunned reaction. Vanessa's hand flew to her mouth. "Turn it off!" she hissed. "Henry, do something!" Henry lunged toward the stage, but two security guards blocked his path. "Mr. Grant stepped forward, face grim. "I trusted you, Henry. You abused that trust, both professionally and personally." Henry struggled. "You don't know what she's done to me. She left me." Maya finally turned to face him fully, her eyes glinting beneath the lights. "I left because I refused to die in your anger. You hit me over rice, Henry over salt." Her voice trembled slightly, but she didn't look away. "Now you'll learn what it means to starve for dignity." The audience went silent. Then came the final clip, Henry's drunken confession to Vanessa, caught on the bar's surveillance camera. She deserved it. Maybe she'll learn next time. Police officers entered quietly through the side doors. Mr. Grant nodded at them. "We've already filed charges for embezzlement, fraud, and domestic assault." Henry's defiance shattered. "You set me up," he yelled, struggling as they cuffed him. Maya's voice softened. "No, Henry. You set yourself up the day you raised your hand against love." The officers escorted him out as cameras flashed wildly. Vanessa sank into her chair, shaking. Maya turned to her, lowering the mic. "You helped him bury me," she whispered. "Now tell me, Vanessa, ready to dig yourself out?" Vanessa's eyes flicked toward the press, swarming closer, trembling as truth cornered her. The crowd buzzed in a stunned hush as Henry disappeared through the ballroom doors, his shouts echoing faintly down the corridor. Reporters swarmed closer, flashes painting the air white. Maya remained on the stage, calm as ever, her blue gown glinting under the spotlight. Vanessa sat frozen at the front table, her mascara streaked, hands shaking. When the police turned toward her, she broke. "Wait," she cried, voice cracking. "I'll tell you everything." The hall quieted again. Mr. Grant stepped forward, microphone in hand. "Go on, Miss Blake." Vanessa rose unsteadily, eyes darting toward Maya. "Henry said it was harmless," she began, trembling. "He said the foundation had extra funds that no one would notice if we moved a little." I believed him. Then he started talking about getting rid of her. A murmur rippled through the guests. Maya's face remained still, but her hand tightened around the microphone. Vanessa's voice grew softer. "He told me he'd make her disappear if she tried to open that inheritance letter. He said she didn't deserve what she was given. He made me help transfer the money, he said. Once she was gone, everything would be ours." The words hit like a cold wind through the hall. A reporter shouted, "Did you know about the abuse?" Vanessa hesitated, eyes flooding. "Yes. I saw the bruises. I heard him yell at her on the phone once. I told myself it wasn't my business." Her voice cracked. "But it was." The officers moved closer. "Miss, Blake, please hand over your phone." Vanessa unlocked it with trembling fingers. "There are recordings," she said. "Every conversation, every transfer. I kept them because I was scared of him too." Maya's eyes softened, not with forgiveness, but with weary understanding. "Fear doesn't excuse silence," she said quietly, "but truth can still heal what silence once protected." Mr. Grant turned to the crowd. "Effective immediately, Vanessa Blake is suspended pending full investigation." Vanessa looked at Maya through tears. "I'm sorry." Maya exhaled slowly, lowering the mic. "Be sorry to the women who will never get to stand on this stage." The police led Vanessa away. For a moment, the ballroom was utterly silent until Maya turned back to the audience, her voice calm but resolute. "This," she said, "is not the story of a victim. It's the story of a woman who learned that truth, no matter how buried, will always rise." Outside, rain began to fall softly against the glass, washing the city clean. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows of Serenity Haven, casting soft gold over rows of blooming white lilies. The once quiet clinic now hummed with life, patients chatting in the courtyard, laughter echoing faintly from the therapy rooms. Maya walked slowly down the hallway, clipboard in hand, her movements calm but purposeful. It had been 3 months since the gala. Henry was awaiting trial. Vanessa had turned state witness. The chaos had settled into silence, a silence that didn't frighten Maya anymore. Tasha entered from the side corridor, holding a cup of coffee. "Full house today," she said with a smile. "Your aunt would be proud." Maya returned the smile. "She taught me to heal people even when I'm still learning how to heal myself." In the group therapy room, a circle of women sat waiting, each with different stories, but the same look in their eyes. The cautious hope of someone learning to breathe again. Maya took her seat among them. One woman, Rosa, spoke first. "I still wake up hearing him yell. Some days I feel like I'll never be free." Maya listened, then answered softly, "Freedom isn't a day, Rosa. It's a process. Every time you speak instead of hide, that's freedom. Every time you say no and mean it, that's freedom." The women nodded, some smiling through tears. Caleb peeked in from the doorway, now 8, holding a small potted plant. "Mom," he said shyly, "I brought this for the garden." Maya's heart swelled. "That's perfect, sweetheart. Let's plant it after the session." As the meeting ended, Tasha handed her an envelope. "Delivered this morning from the courthouse." Maya opened it slowly. Inside was the notice. Trial date, State versus Henry Reed. Her fingers tightened around the paper. "Are you ready for this?" Tasha asked. Maya looked out through the window where Caleb was kneeling in the garden, digging a small hole for his plant. "I used to be scared of seeing him again," she said softly. "Now I just want to look him in the eye and let him see what peace looks like." The afternoon breeze rustled through the flowers outside, carrying faint whispers of laughter and life. Maya exhaled deeply. "It's time," she said. "Not to fight, but to finish." And as the sunlight touched her face, the calm before the verdict began to settle, quiet, powerful, and unbreakable. The courtroom was packed, every seat filled. Journalists lined the back wall, cameras poised. Maya sat in the front row beside Tasha, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She looked serene, almost detached, though her heart thudded quietly beneath her blouse. Across the aisle, Henry sat at the defense table in a dark suit, his once confident posture deflated. The chains around his wrists gleamed faintly when he shifted. The judge entered, gray-haired and stern. "Court is now in session. State of New York versus Henry Reed." The prosecutor, a sharp young woman named Miss Carter, stood first. "Your Honor, the evidence before you, recordings, financial transfers, and multiple witness testimonies prove beyond doubt that the defendant engaged in embezzlement, fraud, and repeated domestic assault." Henry's lawyer rose to object, but his voice lacked conviction. "My client, he's remorseful, he—" The judge raised a hand. "Save it for sentencing." Maya's gaze met Henry's. For a fleeting second, She saw the man he used to be, the one who brought her flowers, who laughed in small kitchens. But that man was buried beneath the greed, the lies, the fists. The prosecutor called Vanessa to the stand. She spoke clearly, voice trembling only once. He said he'd ruin her if she ever left. I helped hide the money. I regret it every day. Henry slammed his fist against the table. Liar! The bailiff stepped forward, hand on his shoulder. The judge's gavel struck sharply. Order! After hours of testimony, silence filled the courtroom. Then came the verdict. On all counts, guilty. Henry froze, color draining from his face. Mr. Reed, the judge continued, you are hereby sentenced to 8 years in federal prison and restitution of full embezzled funds to the Serenity Haven Foundation. Tasha squeezed Maya's hand. The room erupted in murmurs, flashes from cameras painting the air. Henry turned toward Maya, his eyes desperate. Maya, please. I loved you. I lost control. She stood slowly. Love doesn't raise its hand, Henry. It holds it out. The officers led him away. As the doors closed behind him, Maya exhaled a long, trembling breath that carried years of silence out of her body. She turned to Tasha. Let's go home. Outside the courthouse, the wind lifted her hair gently, as if congratulating her. And though justice had spoken, Maya knew her true verdict awaited not in court, but in how she would choose to live free. A year later, Serenity Haven had grown into something more than a clinic. It was a sanctuary. The once quiet halls now echoed with laughter, children's footsteps, and the steady rhythm of rebuilding lives. On the front lawn, a new sign gleamed under the morning sun. Serenity Haven Foundation, for every woman who chose to survive. Maya stood beside it, dressed in a crisp white suit, watching Caleb water the flowers. His small voice carried through the garden. Mom, look! My plant grew, she smiled. The little seed he planted months ago had blossomed into a sunflower, tall, golden, unbroken. That's what happens when you give something care instead of fear, she said softly. Inside the main hall, the press had gathered for the center's 1-year anniversary. Reporters adjusted their mics as Maya stepped to the podium. Cameras clicked, capturing the woman who once hid behind bruises, now standing as a symbol of grace and power. Exactly 1 year ago, she began, I was a woman afraid to speak. I thought silence protected peace, but silence only protects pain. Today, this foundation stands for every survivor who thought she had no voice until she learned she was her own rescue. Applause rippled through the crowd. Tasha stood at the back, tears glistening in her eyes. Maya continued, her tone calm but resolute. Henry Reed's actions broke bones, but not my spirit. He taught me something he never meant to. That strength isn't in shouting, it's in rising quietly until the world has no choice but to listen. A reporter called out, Mrs. Reed, what would you say to women still living in fear? Maya paused, her gaze sweeping the room. I'd tell them this. Don't wait for someone to save you. The moment you decide you deserve peace, you've already begun to save yourself. Outside, the crowd gathered around the new memorial stone dedicated to Dr. Evelyn Carter. Maya knelt, running her fingers over the engraved words. From pain, she built healing. Caleb slipped his hand into hers. Mom, are we happy now? She looked at him, his bright eyes, his hopeful grin, and nodded. We're not just happy, Caleb. We're free. As the camera panned upward, sunlight bathed the garden. Maya turned to the crowd one last time and said quietly, He beat me because the rice had no salt, but life taught me real flavor comes from healing. The music swelled, fade to white.